This will be an instructional video on how to clean the Oki 1040 and 1050. You will need Dissolve It for the tough adhesive. It's much easier to get the adhesive off with this than with isopropyl alcohol, but beware where you use it. I will instruct you where to use it. We'll need isopropyl alcohol, a clean rag, not like this one, a Phillips screwdriver and a flathead screwdriver. First thing to do is to open the unwinder cover, release the paper, take the flange off, wind the paper up, take that out. Now the areas you will want to clean are around here, any adhesive built up on here. You probably won't need to clean this as it is ribbed and the adhesive doesn't build up on that. You'll need to clean this roller. This is what I use the flathead screwdriver for. I use it to get into these corners and to scrape the adhesive out. This is one area where I use the Dissolve It. Spray a little bit on that corner and let it soak. After I've let it soak, I come back and I scratch around with the flathead screwdriver right into the corner. This is not particularly dirty, so I won't be showing you any great results. I scrape in this corner here with the flathead screwdriver to remove the adhesive, just using the edge of the screwdriver. Ours get cleaned pretty regularly, so it's not particularly dirty. Once you've cleaned it, or removed most of it, clean your Dissolve It off. You don't want that stuff going through the printer. If you have any build up on here, use the Dissolve It to wipe it off. But once you have finished cleaning, wipe it off with isopropyl alcohol. You don't want the Dissolve It to be dragged into the printer. If you've splashed anything around elsewhere, wipe it up. In order to remove this, you will need to undo this. In my case it's finger tight, but you may find it needs to be unscrewed with a screwdriver, at least the first part. You will see here, there is adhesive build up on the edge here. This is a good case where this Dissolve It stuff comes in handy. It's very good at removing this built up adhesive. The isopropyl alcohol doesn't do as good a job of that, and leaving it nice and clean. These two screws here, they may be finger tight, not in my case. Just loosen them off. And remove. On the back you will find that it's built up with a lot of paper dust if it's been used for quite a bit. These ones only use isopropyl alcohol on them. Put that aside. Check the inner corner of this. Check the paper sensor here. Only clean this paper sensor and this side with isopropyl alcohol. The top here, there is actually some build up on top here. remove this. I'll make a separate instruction video on how to clean this properly. When you're putting the machine back together, put the guide plate back in, push it into place, and then screw the thumb screw back in. Drop the F0 roller in with this lifting tab closest towards you. Wiggle it round until it's in place, and then screw it up again with the thumb screws. It doesn't need to be particularly tight, so you don't need to do the you don't need to use a screwdriver to tighten it up. Then put the cutter back in. Put the levers down. This cutter should drop in quite comfortably, and once the levers should go down easily. If there's any resistance, lift it and check that it's going in properly. There shouldn't be any resistance, and we did have somebody bend a tab back here by jamming it in wrong somehow. Once everything's clean, put the paper back on the roll holder, the unwinder, lift the tension arm, put the paper in, lining it up with this little tab here and the paper guide, dropping it down, push down the lever to hold the rollers together, and close the lid. To get inside the printer, open the cover, take this entire cartridge tray out, protect the underside of the cartridges. If they get scratched, they're worthless. Put them flat on the ground on top of no obstructions, and then cover them up with something. Actually, I'm going to put them under our table. They're light sensitive, so you want to keep them out of the light. Take the transfer belt out, unlocking the two locking pins. Lift the transfer belt up 45 degrees, then lift it up and out. Store it somewhere safe. Take the fuser unit out by unlocking the lever and pulling it out with the handle. Put it aside. Looking inside the printer, this is the transfer roller. Don't clean this with anything. Do not use isopropyl alcohol to clean it, or especially not this. This can be tipped forward. Look for adhesive build-up anywhere on this plastic sensor tray, both underneath, on here, and on the top of that sensor. The paper goes through this path, and there are sensors on the top and the bottom. You need to remove any adhesive build-up, because as the label is coming through this path, if it hits the adhesive build-up, it will buckle and jam. This blue lever you can pull up and pull out. Look underneath here for adhesive build-up. Ours gets cleaned pretty regularly, so you won't find much, and we won't find much here. Ours gets cleaned pretty regularly, so there is not a lot here. Put that aside. These rollers under here should be cleaned with isopropyl alcohol. If you can remove the adhesive with isopropyl alcohol, that's the best. If it's really stubborn, on these rollers only, not on this, use this to dissolve it, and then clean it off with isopropyl alcohol afterwards. You can turn these rollers by turning this one, it turns the other one at the same time. Now there is 1, 2 and 3 rollers, another roller under there. You'll probably struggle to get into that, and I'll post a separate video on how to get into that. Actually, I'll probably just post it in the middle here. There are 1, 2, 3 rollers that you should clean. Clean the entire paper path. Check that there is no adhesive build-up that the label is going to catch on. As the label goes through this path, any time that there is adhesive build-up, it has the potential to catch it and buckle it, and then if it buckles, it'll jam. In order to clean the third roller inside the printer, you might need to take these 2 screws out. There's 1 here, 3 screws, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. You need to lift this entire unit off, and in order to do that, you should unplug this. Unplug any network or USB cable that you've got in there. You don't want to be fighting that as you lift this up. I have just removed these 3 screws, and now this unit can be lifted out, up and out of the way. This pin locates into this hole, and so when you want to put it back on again, it's quite heavy, so have somebody who is strong do it. Locate it onto the pin and drop it into place. In order to get to this roller under here, you need to remove this black cover. Just 2 screws onto there. This will give you access to this roller, which was a little bit hard to get through here, and you'll be able to see the condition of it. You can clean this roller with isopropyl alcohol or with that dissolve it, as long as you wipe the dissolve it off afterwards. Put some dissolve it on a rag, and then using one hand to spin the roller on the inside, you can rub this rag up and down on the roller out here. There's 2 rollers in a line. Be careful of this little sensor, this little brown tag. You don't want to break that off. It's very important. Check this line here. If there's any adhesive build up anywhere along here, just feel it with your finger. You'll feel the adhesive. From this angle you'll be able to see where the tray goes in. It drops into that and slides forward and sits on top of this. These rollers sit on top of one another and the paper goes into that path there. Put this black cover back on using the 2 screws. Screw it back in. Clear your workspace, then lift the unwinder unit back onto the printer, aligning these pins 1, 2, 3 with the pins as it goes back down again. It should drop into place. It really doesn't need any support to hang in place properly, but you will put the screws back in. If you find that in the process of putting these screws back in they don't line up properly, that would suggest that your table is not quite level one way or another. If it's twisted or something, you want it to be straight. There is a wheel under here that you can use to adjust the height. You want it to support it, but you don't want to push it too high. Otherwise it will twist the entire unit. So put these screws back in. 1, 2, 3. Make sure you've cleaned any areas that had the dissolve it off again with isopropyl alcohol. You don't want to leave that sitting on any surfaces. Put the transfer belt back in, 45-degree angle, pushing it forward in this way. Drop it down, lock the locking pins, take care not to damage these contacts. Put the fuser unit back in. Push the locking lever up. Put your network or USB cable back in. Put your cartridge assembly back in. Close the lid. On the rewinder, you should be looking for areas where adhesive is built up. Check also this. The adhesive build-up on this will cause problems. This is a great area to use to dissolve it. It's really fast at removing adhesive build-up.